For all verified facts, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome. One of the downsides of a lockdown is that schools, colleges and educational institutions are shut across the country in India, and has been the case in many other parts of the world as well. But in other parts of the world, schools are beginning to reopen, particularly in the Western world. Now, the question in India is, when can they reopen, if they can reopen? Secondly, what or how can parents be assured that their children are safe? But most importantly, the question is that what happens when a child has prolonged exposure to quote unquote online education? Is that a good way to do it? Because most of our approach traditionally, when I say traditional, I mean really in the last couple of years, has been to explore blended online and offline approaches which perhaps enhance a child's learning. But what happens when you go full online, and then what are the other things to watch out for, and maybe what are the things that parents can do to counterbalance it if they can? So to discuss this, I'm joined by an expert and who is perhaps best and well qualified to answer. I'm joined by Avneeta Bir, Director Principal at the RN Poddar School in Mumbai. Avneeta, thank you very much for joining us. And it's also interesting to know that you've been an economist in the past. So I'm assuming that some of your responses would be different from maybe many others, particularly in your profession.
Yeah, so glad to be here. And I must say that, when I came to Mumbai, I belong to Delhi and I've worked in different parts of the country. And when I came to Mumbai, my first shock was the space constraint, which translated into time constraint and many other kinds of bottlenecks. But one thing which the city taught me was that if you have the right attitude, then the more constraints you face, the more creative and a better problem solver you become. So I think that's been my experience and my background, and we've used therefore technology as a solution to make our work more efficient and more effective, not just for the frill value. So, and we've recognized the importance of technology more so in the last 4 months. So, often schools have been talking about change and change being inevitable, and change is a constant in our lives. But the fact that change is uncertain and unpredictable, that aspect of change is what we are experiencing and we are living right now. So when you ask me what will be the future and what will happen to schools, when will they reopen, I cannot say that right now for sure. Because that uncertainty is still looming really large on us, in front of us. So we don't have the answers. The answers will come as we go along. So one of the things that we have to learn to deal with is ambiguity, not knowing the answers, but the mindset that as we go along, we will solve the problems. It's not
right. So tell us, right. So tell us about where things stand today, particularly in your school and the kinds of disciplines that you're offering.
Yes. So we are a CBSE school, and since March, we've been conducting online classes. We're continuing to do that. In fact, in our school, which is unlike other Poddar schools, but to our school, we did not even take a break in the summers because we thought that, we've entered into a new mode of teaching and learning, and there was a momentum which had got built up, and we didn't want to break that momentum. We said we'll slow down the pace. And we'll tweak it, but we'll not break the momentum. So I think each school, each institution has had its own journey of online. We were very ready to and very quick to transition overnight. We could do it because we'd been using a lot of Google apps for education, for the last 10 years. So.
Right. So, so what's your academic year, and when did it start, end, and when was it supposed to start again?
Yes, so we were to start 1st April, we begin our academic year. So we had a lot of new students coming in the first week of April, which meant that we had never met them face to face. They had not seen us, they had not seen the school, they're coming from different parts of the country, from different schools. So our first interaction happened on screen. So there was this little angst about and this anxiety about how are we going to connect with these children where we just see them as maybe bubbles, those colorful bubbles on the screen, because we tell them to put off their videos because we can't accommodate. And even those bubbles cannot fully be accommodated on the screen. So you have to scroll down and up to see who all is there in your class, especially given that our class sizes are large, right? So our immediate concern was, how do we get to know, because we don't see them, we can't see their faces, and generally a teacher would feel the pulse of her children by looking at their expressions, and that was missing, and that was like a worry that we had. So again, like I said, you have to find solutions. So we said, okay, so apart from teaching the academic disciplines, and apart from having music and and yoga and physical exercises and all of that, we also had cooking classes, in the evening. So we stretched the day, through the day, and it was not like we were confined only to those hours of school. We also glued our sessions together with something called life skills. And those became actually a binding force. So they connected us with the children. We got to know them. We got to talk to them about what they were experiencing, the kind of emotion, the roller coaster of emotion that everybody has gone through in the last 4 or 5 months. So,
and this is something that you were not doing offline.
Doing it, we were doing offline, but what we realized was that they were much more impactful now. Because today, the children are also more open to, because they needed it. I think, when you give something, when it's needed, it has that much more impact. So I found that the life skill session became even more meaningful during online sessions. Okay, so that's, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, as you look back now, and I'm guessing that in contrast to maybe other disciplines like ICSE or international, you've had a longer run of online exposure to students. So how much of it has worked, and what is your sense?
I would say that, initially teachers were teaching, they were keeping them engaged. How much learning was happening, we were not able to gauge till we kind of, the whole cycle of teaching, learning, assessing, right? And now that we're doing the assessment, we've reached that stage where we're doing a little bit of assessment online. We find that's giving us some idea of how much have they gotten, how much have they grasped and how much have they learned, because the cycle is not complete till you get that and you get feedback. So so far, I think we've done a good job. We're quite satisfied with So what we've done is we've tweaked the program. It's not one size fits all for all classes. It's not that we've done the school as exactly as we were running the offline, in-person school, because our hours are shorter, because we don't want to expose them too much to screen time, because we know that the attention is very difficult to monitor their attention. So we do more of the asynchronous with the smaller children, more synchronous with the older children. So it's it's a customized program that we give. And again, just as in a class, you would look at the children and gauge their reaction and the response to your teaching, and then tweak it accordingly. The same way, sensing and talking to the children and finding out where they were at every given point of time. Just trying to and talking to the parents, because now we had greater access to parents. Okay, so our outreach has actually really increased, because now we can talk to larger number of parents, more kids, teachers. And we've not just left, confined it to only our school. So there are teachers who from other schools like Jaipur and, Raipur. So they've also wanted to sit in our classes. So the advantage of, now opening the scale has really expanded, So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you talked about assessment, so assessment, I'm assuming, is now more about how they are learning, maybe curriculum.
Yes.
In a school today, I'm just trying to understand what's the counterfactual here. So in a school, they are exposed to many other elements, which of course, including people. And now, and that is not possible. So how do you gauge or assess learning in a more composite or a comprehensive way, and learning which includes many other things that people go to school for or step out of the house for?
Exactly. So one of the advantages of what has happened, the silver lining, has been that parents and teachers and students have finally unconditioned themselves from the way they were thinking about, schooling, and now they're open to new ideas. So the board, starting from the CBSE board, which has come out with an experiential learning program and saying that, they've drafted a beautiful curriculum from grade 1 to 8, week-wise, and it's based on using resources generated from home, self-directed learning. So the whole approach has shifted. And so now everybody is ready to experiment and try out new ideas. So which is a very good thing, because we've been, caught in that stereotypical straight-jacketed way of teaching learning, which we're now exploring new ways. And similarly, new ways of assessing. So our assessment is now not the way we were assessing on a paper pencil test. We've had more open-ended questions. We've had quizzes. So we've used technology, and we've also, with the older children and even with the younger ones, we've tried to change the mindset of parents from marks and saying, let's just move to grades, and let's look at a more qualitative way of assessing the child rather than through marks. So we are hoping that this will actually set in precedent a mindset change towards, how we look at learning assessed by marks. So that has happened. The other thing that we tried, which worked really well, was building trust in our children and parents and saying, we're going to give the test to the children and you monitor. Okay, you monitor the way they do the test there, and it has worked beautifully. It's given us amazing results. So, children themselves were surprised that we could trust them with their own assessment. So right. One has tried to bring in new ideas, and I think the environment and the climate is such that one can now break the old norms that we had about teaching and learning and assessing.
Right. Right. So a slightly more conceptual question now. So, but this is obviously it's a situation that we never expected, envisaged, or were prepared for. So it's upon us, and we've responded well. Yeah. But if this were not the case, what is an ideal learning metric for a child? And when I say child, I mean someone who's, let's say, anywhere between class 3 and class 10. And to what extent is this meeting the gap or filling the gap, and what is left over?
This is meeting the gap for now, I think. You asked me, where are we right now, right?
Yeah, in a general sense. You say that, a child who emerges from, let's say, class 10, and I'm not right at this point looking beyond that, has all these qualities, which is a sum of time spent in class, time spent on the football field, time spent walking to school, time spent engaging with people, and doing a whole bunch of extracurriculars, right? So that is the product that emerges after, let's say, so many years. Now, I know we're not going to be in this condition for so many years, but even at this time, there is something that has been taken away, and you are efficiently filling that gap. But what I'm trying to understand is, to what extent do you feel as an educator that you're filling that gap versus what's still left over?
I think emotionally, children are right now very vulnerable. They're feeling the burnout. And not just children, even teachers. So the well-being, the emotional well-being is a big concern. It's not that it's all the time low or it's all the time high, but there are highs and lows. So we have to keep that in check all the time. So a lot of our time is going in trying to measure and gauge their emotional well-being. Of all stakeholders, including parents. Physical exercise, of course, limited. Social interaction, limited. It's just on screen. But we're trying to see that we do activities and where the children are now also taking care of the well-being of teachers. So they're doing some things which would take care of teachers. So I think the bond in that sense is becoming stronger. So I would say that for the time being, given the circumstances and over which we have no control,
right,
we're doing the best we can, and we are hoping that moving forward we can leverage the positives of this. What we wouldn't have ever tried. We would never have done this. We've been forced to do it, and we could take the positives from this into the future, and have a good blend of both the old models and the new norms that we are experimenting with.
Right. And you mentioned teachers. Now, yes, you're right. Teachers are also facing the brunt of this. Perhaps they're working even harder because they too have to acclimatize to this new world. What's your experience been in your school?
So initially there was angst and anxiety, and how will I do it? And then the aha feeling once they learned the tools, and the fact that, oh my God, I can still teach. And then this whole thing that my reach has now expanded. It's not just during the school hours. It's not just this limited number of students. I can now teach a large group. So So there's, so that kind of gave them a very big high. And it actually, also translated in them valuing the work they were doing, which for the longest time, teachers have always felt that, they're not doing something very important. And, that's how society has looked at teaching as a profession. So for me, one of my missions has been to change the perception around teaching as a profession, and I feel that changed. The teachers themselves started to value it. And of course, there is this whole anxiety about, overburdening. I mean, yes, that is something that we have to keep, taking care of. But I feel that teachers have become very creative, the way they are finding solutions to the way they, problems, any challenge that they have. They want to teach a particular concept. They're limited by certain constraints, and they find solutions. So I think creativity has completely, has got unleashed.
Right. So, you've had a long run as already educating online, and maybe things will be okay in 3 to 6 months. Maybe it'll take a little longer. We're all waiting for a cure or a vaccine. But when we look back, what is your message to parents in general? Would it matter? I mean, could there be some maybe longish term damage to children and their, their perceptions, their social skills? Or will all this, yes, it was a difficult time, but that's something children, as bright and smart they are, they will be able to put it behind them.
So, we've been talking about 21st century skills that we have to teach our children. Okay? But we never knew, and one of the 21st century skills is adaptability and, agility, to be nimble and to quickly respond to a situation. And that has got finally put in place, because you see, we could talk about, theoretically, we could talk about adaptability, but till we actually experience it, and this time they've done it. Okay, and having gone through this whole, challenge that we have gone through, and the opportunities that the challenge gave us, right, to move forward and to learn new skills, and to try out new things, and resilience, all these have got really strengthened. And I think if it's a short period of time, the learning from this will hold us in good stead.
Right. Let's hope that stays, and we are able to get back and provide the right blend, and with these new learnings, as you spoke of. Abnita Bhir, Director Principal at the RN Poddar School, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.